The night was thick with humidity, and the small town of Owerri lay under a blanket of uneasy silence. The chirping of crickets filled the air, and the occasional barking of a stray dog echoed through the narrow streets. Inside a modest one-room house, Amara clutched her swollen belly, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Sweat trickled down her forehead as another wave of pain coursed through her body. "Chike, please, please take me to the hospital," she whispered, her voice trembling with exhaustion. But her husband, Chike, stood by the wooden door, arms folded across his chest, his jaw clenched in quiet defiance. "You'll be fine, Amara. Stop exaggerating. My mother gave birth to all her children in this very house. You'll do the same." Amara winced in disbelief. "Chike, this isn't about pride or tradition. I'm in pain. Something isn't right." He turned his gaze away from her, pretending to be unfazed. The faint yellow light of a flickering lantern revealed the tension in his face. Anger, fear, and something deeper, guilt. In the corner of the room sat a small wooden stool, upon which lay an old Bible and a nearly empty bottle of palm oil. Chike had been pacing the floor for hours, muttering under his breath. Every time Amara cried out, he'd tense up but remain motionless, as though frozen by an invisible force. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain began to fall, tapping rhythmically against the rusty zinc roof. The sound filled the room, mingling with Amara's cries and Chike's heavy breathing. "Chike, if you love me, take me to the hospital now," she pleaded again, her hand reaching out toward him. He looked at her, his eyes briefly softening. But then his mother's voice echoed in his head. "If you take that woman to the hospital, you'll lose everything. That child doesn't belong to you." He swallowed hard, the words cutting deep. That morning, his mother, Mama Nena, had come to visit unannounced. Her tone had been sharp, her eyes full of fury. "Do you even know whose child your wife is carrying? You've been blind, my son. The way she's been glowing, the way that neighbor Ibuka always comes around pretending to help. Open your eyes." Chike had laughed it off then, but the seed had been planted. Now, standing in the dim light, watching his wife writhe in agony, doubt twisted his heart. Amara's scream broke through his thoughts. She gripped the edge of the bed, her knuckles white. "Chike, the baby is coming. I can feel it." But Chike just stood there, frozen. "No, no hospital," he murmured under his breath, almost like a chant. "No hospital." Her tears mixed with sweat as she struggled to breathe. "Why, Chike? What did I ever do to you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the window and stared out into the rain, his thoughts clouded by jealousy and confusion. He wanted to believe his mother was lying, but the fear of betrayal gnawed at him. He imagined the humiliation, the whispers in the village, the shame of raising another man's child. Then the door creaked open, and a young girl, barely 12, peeked inside. It was Ngozi, their neighbor's daughter. She'd heard Amara's cries and rushed over. "Uncle Chike, should I call someone? A nurse? She's screaming too much." "Get out," he barked. "Mind your business, Ngozi." The little girl flinched and ran out, her small feet splashing through the mud outside. Moments later, another contraction hit. Amara screamed again, this time louder, her voice echoing through the night. She gritted her teeth, praying under her breath. "God, don't let me die here." The lantern flickered again, and for a moment, Chike's face looked ghostly. He was trembling now, torn between fear and denial. He could see the love of his life, his wife, suffering before him, yet something in his heart refused to move. Suddenly, a sharp knock on the door startled them both. "Open this door, Chike," came a familiar voice. It was Ibuka, their neighbor. His tone was urgent. "I heard her screaming. What's going on?" Chike's heart pounded. "Go away," he shouted back. "This is my wife. My business." But Ibuka didn't leave. He pushed the door open, and rain-soaked air rushed into the room. His eyes widened as he saw Amara on the floor, clutching her belly, blood pooling beneath her. "Are you mad, Chike?" Ibuka shouted. "She's losing blood. She needs a hospital now." Chike stepped forward, blocking the door. "Don't touch her." Ibuka stared at him in disbelief. "What's wrong with you?" Can't you see she's dying? For a moment, the two men locked eyes, one filled with fury, the other with confusion and fear. Then, with a burst of strength, Amara screamed, "Help me, please!" That plea shattered something inside Chike. He turned, saw the blood spreading fast, and his legs nearly gave way. For the first time, he realized this wasn't about pride or betrayal. It was about life. The life of the woman who had stood by him through poverty, hunger, and heartbreak. But before he could act, Amara's head slumped backward, her body limp. Jesus Christ! Ibuka rushed to her side. She's fainted. We have to move now. He tried to lift her, but Chike grabbed his arm. No! Don't touch her. I said don't. Ibuka glared at him. You're insane. You'd rather let your wife die than let someone help her. Chike's voice broke. You think I don't know? I know the child isn't mine. Ibuka froze, confusion written all over his face. What are you talking about? My mother told me everything, Chike muttered. You and Amara. You think I don't see how close you are? Ibuka's expression turned from shock to disbelief. Are you serious right now? You think I'm the father of her child? Amara groaned faintly, her voice barely audible. Chike, please. Ibuka grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. This is no time for madness. Look at her. But Chike's mind was spinning. His mother's words, Amara's screams, Ibuka's anger. It all collided in his head like a storm. Rain poured harder, lightning flashed through the window, and the lantern went out, plunging the room into darkness. Only the sound of rain and Amara's weakening breaths filled the air. And then, in that heavy silence, Chike's voice cracked. If she dies tonight, it will be your fault, Ibuka. Ibuka stared at him, speechless, as thunder roared overhead. The night held its breath. Outside, the little girl Ngozi was already running down the muddy street, screaming for help. But would help arrive in time? The rain continued to pound mercilessly on the roof as Chike stood frozen, his heart thudding painfully in his chest. The room was dark except for brief flashes of lightning that illuminated Amara's pale face. Her breathing was shallow now, her eyes half closed. Ibuka grabbed a torn bedsheet and pressed it against the blood pooling on the floor. She's bleeding too much. Chike, stop standing there and help me carry her. But Chike's mind was a battlefield of voices. His mother's words, that child isn't yours, my son. Don't be fooled by her tears, clashed violently with the reality before him. His wife, the woman who had cooked for him when they had nothing, who had walked miles with him to fetch water, was slipping away. He staggered back, whispering to himself, she betrayed me, she lied. Ibuka turned sharply. You fool. Can't you see she's dying? What betrayal is worth a human life? Before Chike could respond, a loud knock thundered on the door again. This time it was Mama Nena, his mother. She barged in, her wrapper soaked from the rain, her eyes wide but fierce. What is happening here? She demanded, her gaze darting between her son and the bleeding woman on the floor. Ibuka rose to his feet, shaking with anger. You filled his head with lies. Look what your words have done. Mama Nena hissed. Mind your tongue, boy. This woman bewitched my son. I told him, she's carrying another man's child. Amara let out a weak cry, her trembling hand reaching out. Mama, please, it's not true. But Mama Nena's heart was stone. Save your breath, witch. You came into this house to destroy my family. Ibuka could no longer contain himself. He moved toward Chike and slapped him hard across the face. Wake up before you lose everything. The sound echoed through the room. Chike stood still, shocked, his cheek burning. Slowly, his eyes shifted back to Amara, her chest rising faintly, her lips moving in silent prayer. At that moment, something inside him broke. He dropped to his knees beside her and pressed her cold hand to his chest. Amara, forgive me. Please don't die. Tears streamed down his face as he lifted her in his arms. Ibuka, get the keys. We're going to the hospital. Mama Nena screamed after him. Chike, if you take her there, don't ever call me your mother again. But he didn't stop. He pushed past her, his feet splashing through the muddy path, the storm raging around them. Ibuka ran beside him, holding the umbrella over Amara's face as thunder rolled across the sky. Each step felt like a prayer. Each breath, a plea for mercy. As they neared the main road, the faint headlights of a passing motorbike appeared through the rain. Ibuka waved frantically. "Help! Pregnant woman! Please help us!" The bike stopped. Chike climbed on with Amara in his arms, his heart pounding, her head resting weakly against his chest. And as they sped into the night, the only thing echoing in his mind was regret. The rain slowed as dawn crept across the horizon, turning the gray skies pale and tired. Chike stumbled into the small community hospital, drenched from head to toe, his arms trembling as he carried Amara's lifeless body. "Nurse! Please! Help her!" he shouted, his voice breaking with desperation. 2 nurses rushed out with a stretcher. They pried Amara from his arms, her head lolling to one side. The nurse pressed her fingers to Amara's neck, then looked up at the doctor who had just entered. "Barely a pulse," she whispered. "She's going into shock." Chike watched as they wheeled her into the emergency room, blood trailing faintly on the tiled floor. He stood in the corridor, soaked and shaking, whispering prayers to a god he had ignored for too long. Minutes felt like hours. The doctor's voice echoed faintly from inside the room, giving rapid instructions. Chike pressed his palms together, tears streaming freely now. "Please, God. I was wrong. Don't take her away from me. Please." After what felt like an eternity, the door opened. The doctor stepped out, his expression grim. "She's alive," he said softly, "but she lost a lot of blood. The baby didn't make it." Chike froze. The world around him seemed to collapse into silence. When they finally allowed him inside, Amara lay pale and weak on the bed, oxygen mask covering her face. Her eyes fluttered open as he approached. For a moment, there was fear in them, but then sorrow. "Chike," she whispered weakly. Why didn't you trust me?" He fell to his knees beside her bed. "I'm sorry, Amara. I listened to lies. I let my anger control me. Please forgive me." A tear slipped down her cheek. "You almost killed me. And our child." Her voice broke as she turned her face away. "I never betrayed you, Chike. That child was yours." Her words struck him harder than any blow. He bowed his head, his body shaking. I know now. I don't deserve your forgiveness." Silence filled the room, broken only by the rhythmic beep of the monitor. After a long pause, Amara whispered, "It's not me you owe forgiveness to. It's God, and the child you doubted." Days later, Amara was discharged, still frail but alive. Chike walked beside her slowly, holding her hand like something precious he was afraid to lose. Mama Nena never came to visit. Word had spread through the village of what happened. Shame clung to her name like a shadow. At home, Chike placed a tiny white flower on the small grave behind their house, the grave of the child who never took a breath. He knelt there for a long time, whispering through tears, "Forgive me, my child. I let hate blind me." From that day forward, Chike changed. He stopped listening to gossip, stopped letting fear and pride rule him. He cherished Amara like never before, learning that love without trust is only an illusion. And sometimes, late at night, when thunder rolled across the sky, he'd look at Amara sleeping beside him and whisper, "I almost lost everything because I refused to believe in the woman who believed in me." Trust is the foundation of love. The moment doubt takes root, even the purest love begins to die. In the end, Chike learned that sometimes the greatest betrayal isn't by others, it's by the heart that refuses to trust.